Today's episode of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast is brought to you by Baylor Scott & White Sports Performance Center, athletes made here. The Sports Performance Center was developed with one goal in mind: to maximize human performance through movement and recovery. Their team of expert performance sports coaches and trainers will guide you to achieve your performance goals. That's the Baylor Scott & White Sports Performance Center, located at the Star in Frisco. This episode is also brought to you by Allen Dental Studio. Located off Bethany Drive in Allen, their office was designed with you, the patient, in mind, which means an excellent and enjoyable experience. From cosmetics to implants, you deserve a perfect smile, and Allen Dental Studio can make that happen. Also, don't want to leave out another longtime friend of the podcast, Texan Senior Residential Care Homes. With locations in Carrollton and Dallas, Texan Senior Residential Care Homes offers an affordable, high-quality alternative to senior living. Call now at 469-400-7650. That's Texan, spelled T-E-X-S-E-N, Texan Senior Residential Care Homes.
Welcome to another edition of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast. We have the full gang minus Matt Welch here for this one. Hope y'all had a really good Labor Day. We're here for a special Tuesday edition. I'm Bryan Murphy. First, I should, introduce ourselves. If y'all haven't watched the Star Local podcast before, that's Kendrick Johnson to my left, Taylor Raglin, Devin, Hasson. Happy birthday.
Thank you,
Devin.
Appreciate that.
Spending your birthday here with us.
Spending it at the office. What better way? Talking football.
Yeah, there we go. And that's exactly what we're going to do. Lots of week one reactions, some crazy finishes, some crazy outcomes, some surprising, final scores, and, some wild happenings in week one. We're going to dive into that. All the games we were at. I was at Celina versus Frisco Memorial, and, Frisco Memorial, shocked the world, beating Celina, one of the most storied programs in all of Texas high school football. Frisco Memorial, obviously,
just signature win for a young program.
Oh my gosh, Coach Roberson. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Roberson, because from his days at Skyline, I saw him after the game, and they were.
He's around.
You know him, Coach Roberson, Derek Roberson?
Was he defense coordinator?
He was, yeah.
Okay, this is crazy. I went to a Skyline practice back in the day when they were loaded. Mm-hmm. They had like 5 or 6 D1ers, and he's like, "Y'all not gonna get no cane practice better than this, because the competition's so high." Because basically, they had so many D1ers. He said, "You ain't gonna get this competition in the game." So he's that.
He's a fun guy to talk to. Yep. And so I saw him after the game. All the coaches are going nuts. They're all doing this and that. And he told me, I was like, "So do y'all have anything to say about the naysayers still doubting any Frisco Memorial haters out there?" He's like, "No, we here now." And I was like, "There you go. That's my quote for the story." So yeah, I'll dive into a little more of that later. Taylor, you were at a bunch of games this weekend.
That was probably the fullest week I'll have all season. I was at 3 different games. I was at Plano East, LD Bell Thursday, Lake Dallas Denton Friday, and then Lovejoy Colville Heritage Saturday. And I guess the biggest week one takeaway for me, it kind of ties into that Plano East LD Bell game, which Plano East lost 27-21 in overtime. It's just Plano ISD in general. There was
big yikes.
There was optimism-ish around Plano East, a young program, and I think that come the next couple of weeks, they're going to get better. It's kind of a theme of a lot of the games that I saw last week. Lake Dallas and Lovejoy included. Some of these programs with a ton of turnover. They had some real game one, week one efforts. Just kind of your typical. Sloppy at times, penalties, just kind of the drudge of week one. But yeah, PISD in general, man, kind of a letdown outside of, Matt and I were talking about, if you would have told us prior to week one that we'd be most impressed with Plano West against Frisco Reedy, we probably would have laughed at you, but we were, because Plano East lays a bit of an egg against LD Bell. Like I said, just kind of a game one, week one thing. Trey Jones Scott didn't play in the second half, got hurt, so we'll monitor that. He's obviously going to be a huge part of what Plano East tries to do this year. And then Plano, my goodness. We knew that Hebron was the more talented roster and the favorite, certainly the heavy favorite coming into that game, but that's a game that is wild pretty much every year and kind of goes against what you may think, but not this year, man. Plano got absolutely rolled over by Hebron. Hebron looks really, really good. Yeah, and then Plano West competing with Frisco Reedy a little bit, man.
Best team in Plano?
I mean, I wouldn't go that far. Like you said, Plano East, like I said, is only going to improve. Joey McCall is not a guy that's going to let his team hang around and rough the kicker all season long. It's just that little stuff that's going to get cleaned up. But yeah, I mean, there's a legitimate case to be made that, all three Plano ISD schools and East and Plano in particular, who were certainly in the conversation maybe to be bubble teams. I mean, week one was not impressive and did not inspire confidence in those Plano schools.
Hey, you know who the beneficiary of a Plano collapse will be? MISD. This might be the first year since they went to three schools that McKinney North, McKinney High, and McKinney Boyd all make the playoffs, and it can easily happen. Like I said on the preview podcast, if the Boyd and the High go 2-1 against the Plano schools or sweep them, that's a wrap. History will be made in McKinney. And what I've seen for week one is very encouraging, as McKinney North is the juggernaut offense. They'll be in all kinds of shootouts in 7-5A, but 9-6A, Boyd and McKinney will both be teams that get better as the season go on, and they start with high ceilings. Even though McKinney lost, after what I saw last year and where they ended, I'm not worried about them. I already know they're going to get better as they get possible. But Boyd will be the surprise team after week one. I was all on the fence on them. They got
they beat Naaman Forest.
Yeah, but the thing is, their defense, which has had speed over the last 2 or 3 years, not one, not two, not three, but 4 starters, and 3 of them are high-level D1, and one of them's like an SFA type Southland Conference kid. So they got 4 future college players that was not on even the program, that's played wide, transferred from Bishop Lynch, and they had the kid from Allen, get his name right, Brock Archie, transferred from Allen. He's starting, and they got the defensive coordinators kids, Jimmy and Jake Fex, ballers. Jake Fex is all-around dude. He had a pick 6, 77 yards, and then he took a bubble pass to make 3 people miss and went 52 yards. So he's going to be a dual threat on offense and defense, and he had a pick and 8 tackles. And his brother, Jimmy Fex, had 10 tackles, 2 picks, and a fumble recovery. And I looked him up, and 24/7, he's like one of the top 2 or 3 linebackers in the class of 2022.
The thing I will say, I guess, about 9-6A is that 3 teams really, I think, separated themselves as far as just week one. Allen did what Allen does. They looked fine against Cedar Hill. For all the talk of the turnover and everything else, we're not surprised around here at all. I don't think that, they pretty much picked up where they left off.
Yeah.
But then there's something to be said, even though Boyd played Naaman Forest, even though Prosper, had a Rowlett team that they were supposed to be, there's something to be said for going out there and doing it, and Prosper and Boyd both showed really, really well. Prosper, I thought especially, just kind of taking care of business and kind of reasserting, like, we're still here. We lost a lot too, but that's a program that expects to be competitive, that expects to be in the mix for a postseason spot. And those 3, I think, are really, those 3 programs, I should say, in Boyd, Allen, and Prosper are kind of the 3, I guess, winners, if you want to call it, from week one. Because everybody else looked, you could go back and forth on McKinney, lost to a good North team, but everybody else looked at the best middle of the road.
And outside of Allen, you're going to find out a lot more about these teams in the next couple of weeks. Because, like I say, Prosper took care of Rowlett. The Prosper defense didn't allow a point. The Rowlett 7 points came on a pick 6. But again, that's against a Rowlett team that's breaking in a new quarterback, that's breaking in a new running back. They have a lot of new faces. Same thing with McKinney Boyd over Naaman Forest in a game that was kind of close early on. McKinney Boyd kind of ran away with it. But that's against Naaman Forest team that's number 1 breaking in a new quarterback. But not just that, they're breaking in a new system. They ran a wing T last year, in the last couple of years. But with the coaching change, with Jesse Perales taking over, they're switching to a spread. And as you know, when your personnel is geared toward, and you've been working on the wing T, to go from the wing T to the spread is a big difference.
And they made 6 turnovers.
Yeah. So we'll learn a lot more about Prosper and Boyd in the upcoming weeks, especially Boyd this week. But certainly 2 impressive performances by them. Allen, we toot their horn enough. But Boyd and Prosper both sent messages this week.
The catch with Boyd is how good the offense is. They're breaking in the young quarterback, Mr. Whitfield. He did his thing. He had spots. Tyler Shaw, he only had 9 carries, but had 90 yards and a touchdown. So main thing is, can they get consistent play out the offense and basically not beat themselves? They had one stretch. They had a stretch kind of like the Notre Dame stretch where No, name and fumble. They fumbled. Name and fumble back again.
Was it 3 fumbles in like 18 seconds or something like that?
It wasn't that bad, but like the boy, they fumbled the ball and then they stopped them and then they muffed the punt. So their offense didn't touch the field until like after the 6-minute mark, and they had given them no points because they had 2 turnovers. As you know, you can't do that against a Prosper or Allen. That'll get you embarrassed.
So we mentioned GISD a little bit with Rowlett and Garland. Sachse, a game you were at this past week, they broke in a lot of new players, 3 quarterbacks from what I've saw.
That was kind of the theme for both teams, for Coppell and obviously a team that we cover as well. I talked to Coach DeWitt at Coppell after the game. He said he had 11 first-time starters on offense, which obviously is the entire unit basically, and then 9 first-time starters on defense.
Wow.
Coach Barron's over at Sachse said he had 20 guys that played big snaps that had never stepped foot on the field, on a varsity field, or if they had, you could count them on one hand.
Right.
So a lot of questions for both teams coming in. A game that was back and forth. Sachse ends up winning this game 33-30. Again, when you talk about newcomers, Kevin Schumann stepped in at quarterback for Coppell. Did some good things. I mean, I was impressed with his poise. I mean, he was willing to stay in the pocket. I mean, when he did throw his 1 touchdown pass, he took a huge hit, but he stayed in there. I thought he made some good decisions. Unfortunately, he also got hurt in the third quarter, and Coach DeWitt didn't know his availability, his long-term availability after the game. So, the offense kind of lost its rhythm without him. So it'll be real interesting to see what they do going forward there. They couldn't really do much ground-wise against Sachse, that Sachse defensive line. Even though it is somewhat retooled, they've been just so deep in recent years, they were able to really control the line of scrimmage. Yeah, you mentioned it for Sachse, where we heard this before. Oh yeah, last year at this exact time, they roll out 3 different quarterbacks. These are all 3 guys who got snaps during the spring, who've been getting snaps here of late. They started Parker Wells, who's more the conventional drop back type guy. They couldn't get anything going early on, so later in the first quarter they bring in Xavier Foreman, and he moved the offense a little. They didn't score, but as Coach Barron said, we were just kind of trying. He just kept us afloat. We were sinking, and he paddled enough to keep us afloat and whatnot. And then they brought in the Jordan Neighbors, the sophomore, who's more of a running threat. He's still really trying to develop as far as passing goes.
I heard he was moving the offense better.
He came in and they scored on both drives. I mean, they marched right down the field, basically all on the ground, but he gives them that threat that they have to respect him keeping the ball. Right. And you can see that on Coppell. I mean, again, Sachse they were down 16-0 in this game, and Jordan Neighbors comes in and he leads them on 2 quick scoring drives. In the second half, they go back to Parker Wells, and you start thinking, why are you going back to? They were in such a rhythm, but then Parker Wells, Coach Barron says they like the way he can run the offense, and he kind of settled into more of a rhythm there in the second half. Threw a nice touchdown pass, but the big takeaway for Sachse, the big key I think was they're establishing the ground game. They were a committee, running back by committee last year. They graduated a couple of those key guys. They expected to have Miles Nash as the breakout star this year. Then in July, it wasn't even like back in the spring. In July, he transfers to Fort Worth Southwest Christian. So they really didn't know what they were going to do with the ground game. Sean Coleman had kind of flashed some potential last year, but they really weren't sure. He proved himself. He can be a workhorse. He goes 25 carries, 132 yards, 2 touchdowns. A lot of that came in the fourth quarter when Sachse just wore Coppell down with that ground attack. So that's certainly a positive going forward, knowing that you got that reliable guy in the back that can tote the ball 25, 30 times. Again, though, just like last year, when you're rotating 3 quarterbacks in and out, and they alluded to the fact that they could all be called upon again this week against Trinity, and it could be a situation where, like last season, they used 4 different guys until settling on Derrick Rose in the district opener. You could be looking at Sachse doing the same thing for the next 3 weeks until they find a guy that's going to establish himself. But again, the big takeaway for them was getting that ground game going, getting that defense, that front 7, back up to Sachse standards.
I know you're chomping at the bit to talk about Old Memorial, but let's quick hit a couple of the 6-6A programs other than Coppell. Flower Mound rolled over Fossil Ridge. It was kind of close through a half.
Yeah.
And then 27 points, I think, in the third quarter for Flower Mound. Something ridiculous. I mean, the offense found its stride. Pierce Sargent, Blake Short, you know what you're going to get out of them. They were fantastic, and Flower Mound looked really good. That kind of pairing at the top of 6-6A of Flower Mound and Hebron, I mean, it's still there. I mean, I can't wait to see that game unfold and see how that goes. And then Lewisville, obviously, not a huge test in Grand Prairie in week 1, but still, like I said, there's something to be said for taking care of business, 34-3. You go out there, you get some good feelings about yourself, and roll over kind of your week 1 opponent the way you should, because it goes the other way too if you don't. You win that game 14-7 or something stupid, then you're thinking, well, how did we not beat them by 30? So some good vibes in Lewisville. Are they that top tier of Flower Mound and Hebron? Remains to be seen. Probably not, but a good opener for them as well.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Star Local Media. 14 newspapers and websites with a print distribution of 270,000 homes and monthly page views of 600,000 online. Star Local Media, your community voice for news. And now, let's get back to the podcast.
Yeah. Frisco ISD, 8-2 in week 1. Liberty loses to North Garland, and Centennial, I believe it was Royce City.
Yeah, it was Royce City.
And then the rest of Frisco ISD looked pretty good. I was at Frisco High versus Woodrow Wilson Thursday night. The first ever win under Jeff Harbert. The Jeff Harbert era has begun. They blew out the Wildcats. Independence, I've been talking about Braylon Braxton all summer long. 5 touchdowns, 500 yards. I know.
I listened to you. I picked them to win,
but
and you didn't.
Pierce, 6A program, they lost to him last year. I was like, okay, Pierce still pretty good.
That's your bad.
I messed up. Braylon Braxton, I'm sorry. You're my guy. 500 total yards, 5 touchdowns. They blew out Pierce, a 6A program. Lone Star, Frisco Lone Star, Garrett Rangel, the sophomore quarterback, he put up similar numbers, 401 passing yards, 5 touchdowns. Marvin Mims had 10 catches, I should say, over 200 yards.
Special.
He had 3 touchdowns as well.
I like me some Marvin Mims.
Man.
Special.
And Lone Star routes Richland 55-3. I was keeping up with that game, as I was watching my game. There were a couple games I had, with the box score going just to see kind of what was going on. I was really intrigued, to see what was going on with Garrett Rangel. Obviously the news with Chandler Galban, requiring groin surgery, less than a week before the season. So Lone Star, the big news that dropped, I was like literally a week ago. Man, I think it was Wednesday actually.
It was
2 days before the season opener. Chandler Galban tweeted out late Tuesday night that he was going to need surgery. He was going to be.
there's bad mojo on that program.
Well, there was
my business stuff.
No, there was Coach Jeff Rayburn still had never said who was the starter. Even that Wednesday, and then so they were really high on Rangel, the sophomore, as it was, and then so when that news dropped, and Galban, he tweeted it out, and that's maybe not the best way to release the news, saying, hey, I'm going to have surgery, I'm out indefinitely, and they were still high on Rangel, and so I wanted to keep an eye on this game, see what the youngster did, and man, he was right there with Braylon Braxton as my top performances of the night. Little Elm, they shocked Northwest.
You had them.
I did. And I'm a little bit of a Little Elm homer. I will admit that, especially if they're not playing one of my other teams that I cover. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Say that 3 times fast or 5 times fast. But yeah, so they beat Northwest. Jordan Hall ran the ball 25 times in that game, found the end zone multiple times. Ryan Watts, Division I cornerback, committed to OU. He caught a touchdown in this game. They're going to kind of use him, kind of how they used Brandon Crosby last year. Big win. They lost last year in double overtime to Northwest, so that's a big win for Northwest there. And then we talked a little bit about Reedy and Plano West.
Man, I want to get into 7-5A Division II just kind of on the whole. I mean, I was under.
You saw Lovejoy, and you saw Lake Dallas, yeah.
And then, obviously the Reedy game with Plano West. I don't know about that district anymore. I think it might end up being one of those districts where parity means competitive within the district, but are they good enough to do anything?
Are we going to be
shocked? Kind of get out.
Are we going to be shocked if Braswell kind of steps up there?
Man, they had the best week, bar none. Easily didn't Braswell lived up to the hype. Had the best week 1 performance. Red Oak, right? I think is who they had. I mean, that's a good program, and they just smushed them. And that's easily the biggest story I think moving forward. Lake Dallas. from my game watching them, Brandon Ingle is the real deal. He's just athletic enough to be a fantastic high school quarterback. He's going to be fine. But did leave, in the second half. Michael Young wasn't sure what the injury was or if it was even related, because it wasn't even sure he was going to start the game because of a leg injury that he'd been dealing with. He started the game, then comes out in the second half, and Michael Young after the game hadn't even really sat down with the trainers to see if it was even the same injury or not. But if he's healthy, that Lake Dallas offense looked a lot more explosive than I thought it would be. Kobe Minor going to Texas Tech as a defensive back, they lined him up as a receiver. If you get the ball in his hands, I mean, he's just another tremendous athlete, and it's going to be kind of the same story. Just, if Lake Dallas can continue to find a way to put the football in those two guys' hands and kind of, just rely on their athleticism, I think their offense is going to be okay. Lovejoy, underwhelming to me. I mean, but I think a lot of it is kind of how I feel about like the Plano East of the world. Ralph Rucker, it's his first game under center as a junior. Super athlete, multi-sport athlete. Went to state in wrestling, center field for the baseball team his entire career thus far. But needs some more seasoning, I guess. Just kind of running the offense, and there's a lot of youth around. That entire offense. A lot of dumb stuff, like a 3rd and 1 they had to hold. Like just a lot of stuff like that throughout the game. And they lose 13-10. I don't expect them to only score 10 points forever. Their receiving core rolls over too well. Rutgers too good of an athlete. I think they'll be okay. But just overall, I mean, even Reedy, that district just feels like a gigantic question mark.
Because you texted me, around halftime of our games, and that was another one of the games I had the box score pulled up, and I was watching that, and I was sitting there freaking out. I was trying to pay attention to my game, and I was like, "What is Reedy doing right now?"
You on upset alert?
I was. They were losing 7-3 at halftime. Yeah, and that's bad. 3 points against Plano West, a team they beat by 50. A team everyone beat by 50 last year. You new quarterback, new running back, half your offensive line's gone, new players on defense all across the board. They lost a lot of starters from that team last year. You still got to think, man.
That's
you have John Kitna's son at quarterback.
It's those programs like, if you want to be, Reedy's not an Allen. I don't want to say that before I get everybody yelling at me. They're not an Allen. But if you want to be one of those perennial contenders, you have to be able to roll over like that. You have to be able to absorb those losses, figure out a way to bring the talent along in the program and be just as good. You can't have. Obviously they ended up taking care of business against West, but you can't go beat West by 10 points if you're Reedy after the year you had last year.
And be losing half the game. No. And Chad Cole told me after their first practice, the big quote he gave us was, for the first time ever, Frisco Reedy is overrated.
Yeah. I don't know how much he meant it or how much it's motivation, but maybe he spoke it into being.
I think he meant it a little bit, just based off expectations from last year, because it's not the same 13-1 team.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Reedy's bad. Obviously, Reedy's still the favorite to win this district, regardless of what happened against West, but a little bit was concerning, and they have a tough test this week.
It's tougher, outside of your Elitos, which is a one-horse town, it's tougher for a 5A program to maintain that high level. It's not like Allen that has 7,000 kids to choose from. All those 5A schools have basically, they got about, 1,800 or 2,000 students out in Frisco.
Reedy might have 1,900.
So, with lower numbers, it's hard. If you have a couple classes come through that aren't as talent rich as what you've had before, it's harder to maintain that high level.
And then trying to keep the systems, like the reason the Highland Parks and the Lidos of the world good, those kids are in 3rd grade, are going to run that same system in 12th grade.
In a one-horse town.
We got to remember, Reedy, this is only their 4th ever season.
Well, and I think.
But part of being a program is when expectations are up, can you meet them? Because when you go down, boom, we see that in professional sports. When the Cowboys are supposed to win, they don't show up. When they ain't supposed to win, they show up.
I guess the good news, if you're Reedy, is that district, at least based on week 1, doesn't look tremendous. We'll put it that way. I think it's going to be. We all think it's going to be competitive, underneath Reedy, and maybe they come back to the pack a little bit. But there's not a team in that district, with the exception of maybe Braswell. Maybe with Denton and how some of those other programs have grown. Maybe this is. Signs of things to come for Braswell. Maybe they're a lot better than any of us even gave them credit for. So we'll see. But
or Memorial.
Full circle.
And then switch against to being Devin. So 7-5. It's going to be the Wild Wild West yet again. You can already see I already know McKinney North's you're gonna have to put 40 points just to compete with them. That's already a done deal.
Been the same McKinney North for the last 5 years.
Well,
they got the new signal caller, Dylan Markowitz. Got to give him a shout out. The dude was very efficient. His first full start as the guy of the program, 18 for 23, 4 tubs with a highlight reel catch by Brandon Frazier, Arkansas commit. He stabs with 2 people on him. It's on YouTube. He stabs. He's 6'7", 235. Keeps his balance. He's running
up to 6'7" now.
He keeps his balance, goes up the sideline, jukes a guy, jumps on the 5, and gets it in with 4 seconds on the clock. And the game was on local TV, so they got a lot of pub. But yeah, the offense at McKinney's gonna be rolling. McKinney North, he threw for 332. Manny Fincher went for 156, 490 total yards, 21 first downs. When you go see the Bulldogs, you better put up some points, or they're gonna run wild on you.
But can they stop anybody?
That's a whole other thing. The first half, they show potential. I think they got tired from. They had 3 drives or 3 plays or less, so they were up 34-14 at halftime, and the score ended up being 44-42. So they show potential, but putting it together for 4 quarters is going to be a problem.
Well, and speaking of 7-5A Division I, it's a nice segue into all my Mesquite schools.
Yeah, there you go.
We haven't even talked Mesquite.
The 2 7-5A Division I teams had nights to forget, or days to forget, I should say, week 1 against good competition. Poteet, it just spiraled. They played Denton Ryan, the number 2 team in the state, and
it's not even fair.
It just spiraled out of control. And against a team that good, when they start capitalizing on punt returns and turnovers, it can get out of hand early, and it did. They roll over Poteet 52-6, but that happened a couple of years ago. Poteet lost 44-3 early in the season, and Denton Ryan bounced back to make the playoffs. West Mesquite, kind of a similar story against a very good Hutto team that went, I guess, 4 rounds deep last year. They scored the opening points of the game, and then Hutto reels off 41 straight. West Mesquite scored a couple late to get back to within 41-21, but certainly a couple games to forget, or build from, I should say, for those 2 programs. North Mesquite had a tough loss against Arlington Sam Houston. This is a North Mesquite team that's still trying to build under Coach Tim Cedar in his second year there. Mesquite with a nice win, 21-6 over Lake Highlands. Defense and special teams basically dominated for Mesquite. I'm not real worried about their offense. I think they got the pieces in offense. They got a returning starter, Dylan McGillett, at quarterback, and Ladarius Turner at running back. The offense will be fine, but it was a good sign to see their defense and special teams. And then the big story for Mesquite ISD against a 7-5A Division I team, Horn against Tyler John Tyler. Tyler John Tyler comes into the game ranked number 6 in Class 5A. People looked at that Horn record last year, the 5-8 record, and didn't know what was going to happen. They have a new head coach named Chris Hudler, and Kendrick, you and I actually picked the Jaguars to pull the upset.
That's why we 7-5A experts.
and not only did Horn pull the upset, they were pretty dominant in this game. They win 37-19 out at Rose Stadium in Tyler. They have a new quarterback, Devazia Gabriel. He throws for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. Coming a week after they put over 500 passing yards on DeSoto in their scrimmage, and that's one of the reasons I thought that they could go out there and pull the upset. Charles Crawford.
You got to tell me these things for the picket line. Come on,
Charles Crawford. A lot was made of him when he transferred out to Horn this summer. He made an instant impact, a 52-yard touchdown catch, and then a 92-yard touchdown run to kind of salt it away late. Nikausi Emery, one of the best punt and kickoff return guys a year ago, picked up where he left off. He goes 96 yards for the kickoff return. And, the defense, they gave up a couple of big plays. John Tyler's got some explosive athletes. They gave up a couple of big plays, but for the most part, they held that offense, a John Tyler offense that was breaking in a lot of new faces. But they were able to keep them in check and really shut them down as the game went on. So, like I say, really impressive win for Horn, 37-19. We'll see what they do this week, because they have a chance to do it again because they play Highland Park on Friday.
Yikes. So would you say Horn right now was the best looking team out of all of Mesquite? Out of any classification, any district?
I think if you sit there and look at just on the results. I mean, I didn't see any of the Mesquite ISD teams play last week. They were all out of town. But when you can't sit there and say, oh, Poteet looked the best. They got beat 52-6. You know, you look at the two teams that won. Again, Mesquite beat a lot, Blake Collins' team. That's a solid win. But, 21-6, it wasn't like they were firing all cylinders. Yeah. To go and take down a team like John Tyler, who went several rounds deep in the playoffs.
I saw them beat Lone Star last year.
Almost beat Highland Park during that playoff run. And like I say, as Kendrick and I were talking about, we see how they match up with some good teams in that district. To go on the road to East Texas and post a win like that with the new quarterback and with the new coaching, head coach.
Easier said than done.
Very, very impressive.
So safe to say you'd say Horn was the most impressive team out of your markets. Who would you say the team that most impressed you, just from the teams that you cover?
Man, I guess nobody, but no. I mean, Plano West.
Shouts.
Plano West for sure, because even though, a 10-point loss to Reedy, no matter what Reedy's got going on, is nothing to be ashamed of, especially the first game under head coach Tyler Sokup. I think that program's trending in the right direction. Do they get the win this year? I don't know. I mean, I'm on record saying I think they'll win at least one. I think they'll sneak up on somebody. Yeah. But, that's any step in the right direction for that program is huge. I'm really interested in that game with Mesquite 2 weeks from now. Yeah. I mean, they have Flower Mound this week. That's a tall order. But them and Mesquite, that if Plano West keeps trending in the right direction, that could be a closer game and a better game than I think people might think, especially based on last season. So I'll give the nod to Plano West just for the showing. They were competitive, and that's more than they could say for the last 2+ seasons.
Yeah, that's easy. McKinney Boyd. Then I've been watching them for 3 years. Their record is 9-21, and other than beating Plano West, like you said, everybody beat them by 40. They beat them by 35 last year. Nobody, I hadn't seen them show out like they did. And with like I said, the four people on defense that wasn't even part of the program this time last year is very, very highly underestimated. It's gonna come in big to the point I got me thinking of all MISD playoffs. High and North. I knew what I was going to see out of them. They'll both get better as the year go on. The North will improve on defense. High will get better overall. The thing about, I know you're big on improvement. The fourth last year for McKinney was down here when they started, and you saw where they ended up at. This year they're like up here. So if they do anything they did last year, Coach Shavers them gonna be all right. I got confidence in them to pull it through. Same with Coach Fetching though. But the new stuff at Boyd, they were highly impressive in week 1. So we'll see what they do with this big test against our Fireman Marcus at MISD on Thursday, which should be the Star Local Game of the Week.
That's a good transition. So they're blowing out the vote, blowing that vote out of the water with 550 plus votes right now, something like crazy. That. So our Thursday podcast this week will feature this guy right here, unless something crazy happens.
Got me doing extra work this week.
We just want to see you around. That's all it is. So, but yeah, make sure to stay tuned for that. That's Kendrick Johnson. You'll see him again later this week. I'm Bryan Murphy, Taylor Raglin, Devin Hasson. We'll see you Thursday.